I'm one of the senior supervisors for the rangers here in Yankari. I know how to handle firearms, and I know how to do the patrols, and I know how to coordinate between the rangers and the communities, or how to live in the bush without any injury or any fearing now.
Conservationists in the Yankari Game Reserve are pushing back several challenges to protect the pristine ecosystem and home to wildcats, species of birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles.
Yeah, because we have so many challenges in the reserve, like poaching, grazing, logging, collecting firewood. All those are challenges. Before, we don't have firearms to interrogate or to tackle the case, but the time that these WCS came in, we have trained and they give us all the equipment. So now we have a power, or we have a mind to confront all the challenges. Now the pressure is coming down.
So how has the interaction with the rangers been?
Oh, it's been great. Since the beginning of the training, we've really seen the level of discipline, and the morale of the rangers has really improved with the training and the support that WCS has been providing. We obviously interact with the communities as key stakeholders. We hold annual stakeholder workshops with the leaders of the communities, including the Fulani leaders, who are one of our concerns. And recently, excitingly actually, we've got a new grant from USAID to do more work with the communities, especially providing safe potable drinking water, provision of basic hygiene and sanitation facilities, and also support for conservation education and sustainable livelihoods, so that we can reduce the pressures of the surrounding communities on the reserve.
The Yankari Game Reserve was initially created in the 1950s as a game preservation unit of the northern region. The vegetation island, spanning 2,244 square kilometers in the Alkaleri area of Bauchi, was handed over to the federal government and converted into a national park in the early 1990s. However, it reverted to state control in 2006. The state government in 2014 signed a co-management agreement with the Wildlife Conservation Society, expanding a relationship that dates back to 2009. The reserve is also home to one of the largest elephant populations in West Africa. Many years ago, when it was still a national park, there were reportedly 300 to 350 elephants. But a period of heavy poaching from 2006 to 2014 reduced their numbers dramatically. The Wildlife Conservation Society partnership has improved the capacity of rangers to track, detect, and intercept intruders.
I can see WCS on your shed. Is that the organization you work? What does this stand for?
Yes, WCS stands for the Wildlife Conservation Society. WCS has been working in Yankari since 2009. And in 2014, we signed an MOU with the Bauchi state government to support them in the protection of the reserve and all other conservation activities. We worked mostly with the rangers from that time, supporting their patrols, empowering them with training, field equipment, field rations, and an allowance at the end of their camping patrol. So rangers patrol for between 7 to 10 days at a time in the bush, and then they return and we change shifts with another group. And at the end of their shift, they all receive a small allowance. This is now coming into my 4th year here in Yankari, and I'm currently the Wildlife Conservation Society's project manager here in Yankari.
I'm hearing a bit of sound. So what the sound is from what?
Those are Tantalus monkeys that are in the background. I think we scared them off just before we started filming. There might be some salt deposits at the bottom of the waterfall that they can access.
So this is actually a waterfall.
This is a waterfall in the rainy season. It's a dry riverbed now, but it's a waterfall in the rainy season.
So what kind of animals usually gather here?
Anything really, from warthogs, the baboons, the tantalus monkeys, some of the antelopes maybe will come and drink during the rainy season when the water is flowing. But anything that is here, birds of course as well.
Is it true that you have lions here?
Yes, we have a small population of West African lions.
You have lions?
Yes.
Interesting.
And elephants. We have leopards and smaller cats like the civet cat, the caracals and servals. We have a lot of servals here. We struggle a little with human-elephant conflict because now the reserve is completely surrounded by farms. So our elephants stray outside to their previous grazing grounds, but they are now farmlands, obviously, and eat people's crops.
The main threat currently to the elephants in Yankari Game Reserve is human-elephant conflict. But elephants prefer to come out of the reserve and raid farms of sugarcane and of maize, bringing them into conflict with local farmers. Unfortunately, farmers often take reprisal attacks against those elephants out of frustration that they're not compensated for the crops that they have lost. That's the main threat now to the elephants in Yankari Game Reserve, is conflict with farmers surrounding the reserve.
WCS started an Elephant Guardian program. We have 18 individuals who were selected by their village chiefs from the communities that most suffer from human, wildlife or elephant conflict. And those individuals act as our first line of defense. They call our rangers when they sight the elephants straying outside the reserve so that they can go and drive them back into the reserve.
How long have that project been?
I think it's in its 6th year now, or 7th year. It's been quite a long time and it's very successful. We have better relationships with the communities. They feel they have an active stake in managing the problem now compared to before. And it's getting a lot better in those communities. The problem is reducing.
Kuma ina elephant guardians.
Menene elephant guardians?
Elephant guardians muna kula ne da giwaye idan suka zo suka barna, muna an duba mana lalle kansu a bakin layi. Hakan nan in suka zo zamu duba wanda suka zo mu kai musu cewa giwa sun taho. Inda da dare da su zo ne ma'aikata su zo su taya mu kore su kuma jeji.
So kuna lura da movement giwayen da safe?
Da safe in gari ya waye zamu zo mai taking din bakin layin cewa sun zo kuma zo ba. In dare yayi still da magariba after 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the night. So muna iya zuwa mu lalle wajen har mun hira nan gurin. So amma already last time ba mu da tawa din. Daga baya da kamar shi zamu zo mu zauna sama muna leka muna suna zuwa muna jin karar suna zuwa. Da mu kira su daga Yankari su zo su turo wannan mota da ma'aikata sai mu haɗu sai mu kori gidan suka koma.
Ba ka tsoro? Ba ka tsoro?
Tsoron ai na dole ne ba mai tsoron ba dole na mu hakuri inda muna kare dukiyar jama'a ne da namu.
Akwai lokacin da giwayen suka taɓa biyan ka ko ne ba ka?
Tabbas akwai lokacin suka biyan da direba kwaya 3 ba daya. Sunansa
to ya kuka yi?
Ya kuka muka je muka yi karin jama'a suka muka zo muka kore su so koma.
Yanzu giwan da suna muku asara sosai a gona.
Gaskiya suna cin amfanin jama'a irin rogo da wuro, kafantin, yawa da masara, wake, da suna iya cinye su gaskiya.
The conservation education is one of the programs that is sponsored under the USAID grant, USAID. So we have a conservation officer who's visiting local schools in the communities, forming conservation clubs, getting the children excited about conservation and the wildlife in this reserve so that they can begin to change their attitude so that it becomes a less exploitative relationship between the communities and the reserve in future. So we're just trialing beehives also as a way of mitigating that human-elephant conflict. They can sting them around the eyes, the nose, the mouth, other sensitive parts. So they try to avoid contact with bees wherever possible. So following a project by Dr. Lucy King of the Elephant Crisis Fund and with funding from the Elephant Crisis Fund, we now constructed beehive fences, which you'll see So the Beehive project was intended to reduce the pressures that we experience with elephants raiding farms nearby. So previously, Yankari used to have a buffer zone around it, an area where the wildlife can enter freely and come back. But more recently, that has been taken over by farmland. So farms now extend right up to the edge of the reserve. So when our elephants or other wildlife venture outside the reserve, they're immediately in someone's farmland. So we've been experiencing a lot of human-elephant and human-wildlife conflict as a result, which is one of our main conservation challenges now, especially for the elephants.
So you've been doing the beehive trials to help
mitigate the elephant crop raiding.
Is that working well?
It's early in the trial, so we have yet to establish a database. Some of the hives are not even occupied yet. So it's only in the last few months that those were installed. So we're waiting for the hives to colonize, and then we'll be monitoring the performance and the benefits of that afterwards.
Me kike yi?
Na rufe hayakin saboda kar wutan ya mutu da wuri.
Me kuke da yakin?
Muna koran zuma da shi, kodan zuma. Sana'a na noma.
Me kike noma?
Ina noma gero, rogo, dauro.
Yaushe ka fara sunan noman zuma?
Fara sana'an zuma. Kafin mu samu na abin nan na gwamnati, na kai shekara 5 ina kiwon zuma. Sai muka kuma samu na gwamnati din.
Me amfanin zuma?
Muna sayarwa, muna kuma yin magunguna ma da su.
Suna hana giwaye zuwa gon.
Sukan kare duk inda dai muka sa kango, ana dan samun sauki na inda suke shiga mana gonakai.
We have poachers that come in Yankari mostly for subsistence purposes, feeding their families or earning small money from the gain they receive. But we manage it obviously with very aggressive ranger patrols. That's what the rangers are out doing, searching for any illegal activity. We make the arrests, we hand them over to the law, and thereafter it's up to the law. I think last year we arrested about 44 poachers.
And that's going through the legal system?
Yes.
The reduction in poaching has paved the way for the recovery of the elephant population in the reserve.
So you can see the footprints of the calf following his mother. The calf's print here, and the mother.
So how many, what's the estimate, how many move in a herd?
It depends. We're now just speculating that maybe they've split. So elephants sometimes do something called splitting and fission fusion. So they split into 2 different herds, leaving the parents with the young ones, and then sometimes the males separate. So it varies. It's difficult to estimate how many are in a herd.
So that's elephant.
Elephant down and some urine. Because the digestive system of the elephant is quite poor, you can always find the remains of what it's been eating. So recently, we've been eating a lot of this desert date called adua in Hausa. So these are the seeds, and they're found in this area. So they're really eating this thing now. You see plentiful in the seed here, together with the grasses and the twigs.
The process is expected to be a slow recovery because of their low reproduction rate.